Hello and welcome to the AT Center at TCNJ. This webinar series is facilitated by the Inclusive 365 team and focuses on inclusive practices. The Inclusive 365 team specializes in helping organizations create more inclusive educational environments. They are known for the book Inclusive Learning 365, EdTech Strategies for Every Day of the Year, and provide services to organizations such as book studies, webinars, and consultations to help educators develop and implement inclusive strategies. The team consists of 4 professionals: Christopher Bugaj, Karen Janowski, Beth Poss, and Mike Marotta. Join them as they introduce practical strategies you can implement immediately in your environment to promote inclusive practices. This is Module 4, Inclusive Strategies for Writing. These webinars are made possible through our partnership with the New Jersey Department of Education, Office of Special Education. The statements issued by guest presenters do not reflect the stance of the NJDOE OSE. Please use your professional judgment when implementing strategies and resources within your practice. Let's listen to the Inclusive 365 team.
Hey, Mike. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. Great to get started on this new writing webinar as part of an Inclusive Learning 365 series. Really excited about this particular topic. I mean, they're all excellent, but this category is especially exciting. What do you think?
Yeah, this is fun. I like these. These are all fun. Like you said, these are all fun. This one's really fun, though. I like this. I'm excited to chat with you about it as we go forward. So here we are. There's your QR code for the slides if you want the slides as well, in addition to this recording. Some of the slides have links in them, right, Karen? There's a few links to pop out too.
A few of them, yep.
Yeah, so definitely make sure you get the slides and watch the recording. I had said in one of the other webinars, the benefit you all have as you watch this is that you're watching the recording. You could stop at any time and go and jump off and try something, or go off and explore and then come back, which is actually a really nice way to do it. Karen and I don't have that luxury right now. We got to just keep talking, but for the rest of you, you can jump off and chat, which is awesome. Check it out.
So here we are. Yep, just 2 of us. So I'm Janowski. I'm just coming to you from north of Boston, and I am an inclusive technology evangelist and advocate. How about you, Mike?
So hi there, everybody. Mike Marotta. I am in New Jersey. Maybe that's where some of you are, if these are coming from TCNJ. I am an AT specialist, inclusive technology evangelist is a title that I throw around once in a while. I'm also the director of our state of the New Jersey Assistive Technology Act project. So a little of everything. And the other 2, well, they're just the other 2 at this point, since they're not, of course, it's Beth and it's Chris. You'll see them, or you'll see some variation of the 4 of us in each of these. So as you've been watching them, you'll get the chance to see us all.
And thank you for joining us too. And so, again, a lot of our information is published. We've got the book, Inclusive Learning 365, and then we've got a new deck that came out through ISTE and ASCD, Tips to Activate Inclusive Learning. It's just a deck of cards. We want you to stack the deck and be ready for the new school year.
It sits right on my desk. It's easy to sit on my desk, Karen. So check those out. Those are out there and they're great stuff. 9 parts. Have you watched others before? I don't know. The beauty of this is they're all out there. You could watch them basically in any order you want. So we're not sure if this is the first one you've seen or the 9th one you've seen. It kind of doesn't matter. You can pick and choose. It's a choose your own adventure scenario. And so we've chunked these webinars out to correspond to the sections of our book. Starting off with our one kind of, in our minds, is always our kickoff webinar, the inclusive mindset one, kind of put you in the right frame of mind to approach inclusive learning and adding these tools and strategies into your daily activities. And then the rest are all focused on a different area. And today we're going to talk about writing. Kind of fun. Let's see what we got. There you are. The focus. There it is.
So when we think about writing, we think about the 5 stages of writing. There's the brainstorming, the pre-writing, the generating ideas stage of writing. Then there's the drafting stage, writing it all out. Then, of course, you need to go back, you need to revise, finally edit, and then publish. And there could be a breakdown in any one of these areas. And we're hoping to give you some ideas of how some of the strategies can help with one of these stages of writing. And, think about this. I know I was an occupational therapist in the schools, and we would very often get referrals because around the writing process, written expression was a real challenge for some of our learners. And we would often see a referral, not just because of handwriting issues, but the whole writing component piece. There could be a breakdown in any one of these areas. And so this is a really important reading and writing. The literacy components are such an important part of helping our learners be successful and independent. So let's share some of the ideas that we have. Let's go for it, Mike.
I think it's so important. And I think that this slide to me is really important because as someone who is tasked with working with educators to help learners be successful, we're brought into a lot of situations, Karen, right? People say, oh, I need some technology, and that's how they'll start.
Yeah.
And then we have to remind them that, well, maybe you don't need technology, but this is one of those areas, writing and reading as well, where people will make blanket statements like, my student doesn't write, without giving us a whole lot of information about what that means to what part of the process is the struggle for that person, because that will change the approach we look at to provide them some support and some guidance. And I'm sure, Karen, as an OT, you hear that all the time, that this student has writing issues. But what? An issue with brainstorming and pre-writing is much different from a publishing issue. Those are two very different things. And so where is that student falling in this continuum of support as they move through this process? And what strategies can we put in place? So this part is always important to me.
And the other thing too, Mike, that you're bringing up, there's so many underlying skills that are necessary to be a successful writer. You need to be able to generate ideas. You need to be able to spell. You need to be able to use an output method. You need to be able to hold on to working memory issues. There are just, you need to have the vocabulary. There's so many components to actually generating those ideas and thoughts and making them something that's tangible. So there can be a breakdown in any one of those areas.
Right, exactly. And that's all going to lead to this person's statement of the student, this learner does not write. And then we'll be able to dig down into it as we go. So let's start.
So I think that really blends nicely. What a great segue to one of the things we have to think about is, are we offering mistake tolerant tools? So it's so important as the strategy to select those tools that allow our learners to make errors and then to just start over again without that frustration. And I think, that I've seen that young girl in this image. I've seen her, break things down just because it's so frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
So think about it. When I talk about the term mistake tolerant, just think of it this way. Think about when you create something with clay and you make a mistake and you just start all over again. It's mistake tolerant. But think about sculpting with stone. What happens when you make an error? If you keep making mistakes, you end up with what? It's just a little pebble. And so think of clay is absolutely mistake tolerant. Stone and sculpting is not. So are the tools that you're using in your classroom, in your learning environment, are they mistake tolerant? Think about a paper and pencil. How many times, Mike, I've seen this so many times, like it'll be a writing period, it'll be a literacy block. and kids will be writing and writing, and then they just keep erasing and erasing, and eventually there's a hole in that paper, and it's near the end of the writing block, and they're like, oh no, but it's their frustration and their difficulty with written output. So it looks as though they've worked so hard, but it's kind of like a defense mechanism. It's a protection for them. So let's give them mistake tolerant tools. And dry erase boards, one of the most low tech options that really can support our learners. But when I think about mistake tolerant, I also think that of the multi-sensory supports that are built into some of these features that are built into some of these tools. So think about mistake tolerance when you're audio recording. You make an error, easy to record again. And so you can use your voice, you can do an audio recording, you can voice recognize, you can do voice typing. And it really does support our learners who struggle with using an instrument to demonstrate what they know. Let's give them options that make it a more successful activity for them.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love our sample tools here. Run the gamut, like you said, from low to high. And that it's so important to remember that is that so many choices out there for us to use. And, we can look at these tech driven tools. Maybe that's the tipping point for one of our learners to be like, oh, I'm into this because I like the technology part. But when I see dry erase board there, Karen, it makes me smile because I've worked with plenty of students who that is the answer.
Yeah.
A marker and a dry erase board and let them kind of work through some of the things that they're trying to write down and then move to a next phase with it.
And when we see a lot of reliance on paper and pencil products, we see the workbook, the workbooks, the packets, and think about, as we always say, think about who's being left out when we are relying on paper. Think about the learners who are really struggling with pencil control or letter formation, or just recalling, who have the letter confusion, what do letters really look like, and they don't have the motor memory in place yet. And so let's remove that obstacle and help our kids be more successful.
For sure.
Okay, then the whole breakdown can be around generating ideas. There's so much that's involved even in coming up with ideas. And this, Mike, do you see this as an obstacle?
Yeah, right. It's you think about that person who's having difficulty getting started. What is their enemy? Yeah. It's the blank page with the blinking cursor.
Exactly.
I can't even get past that. It feels like a mountain.
Yeah, absolutely. That blank page. I love that. What you said, the blinking cursor.
So just blinking.
It could be that technology base, but that whole task initiation, which is part of executive function. So there's so many ways that there can be that there can be struggles in how do you initiate this task. So there's AI now. AI can be a support for helping generate those ideas. And I've given an example here using ChatGPT. So the strategy is generating ideas. And with that blank page, how do you get started? Hopefully, many of our educators have offered prompts. Oftentimes, I do see in Google Docs that there will be an organizer, but that's not always the case. So here's a prompt. Give me examples of characters or leaders who changed their minds and why. But again, we've got to say this, right, Mike? We don't want the AI to create and draft the written expression for us, but to guide us, help us get started, and to give some ideas just to get us started.
I think this is such a great example of AI, Karen, in all of the ways that people are pushing back on AI, that AI can't be part of this process, period. And people make these blanket statements of AI equals bad. This is a great example of AI just to kickstart the process and get someone thinking. And like you're saying, in no way is this prompt necessarily leading to written expression. It's leading to ideas that start that written expression for them, which I think is really important. And that's about how we're using the AI, not AI in itself as AI equals bad. It's AI is appropriate here. And I think these are great examples.
And then you know what, Mike, can happen too? You can, the educators can encourage the learners to reflect. How did AI support you? How did it work against you? Think about, what impact it had on your ability to compose text. Just that's another opportunity to reflect on. Because like you said, there is, a lot of pushback about the use of AI, but it can also be something that we can reflect about and just think what impact it had and how can it be used, effectively in the future for different types of challenges and prompts.
Yeah.
So it's an opportunity to reflect on its use.
Yeah, I think it's great. And that's also, when I think about that, Karen, that brought up an idea in my head is that how many times are individuals in a classroom stopping to reflect and have that conversation of why we use this, how it helped us, and how it's changed our view going forward of this task, right? That reflective moment. And I think that's so important. I think people spend a lot of time with a kind of quick decisions about this is okay to use, this is not okay, and we're just going to move forward and we're just going to have to do it. But that kind of reflective conversation becomes critical, because then we're providing them that understanding, that deeper connection to what they're trying to do by using some of these tools to help them.
Yeah, definitely. You're incorporating critical thinking and analysis, which AI can't replace because it's conversations in the classroom and reflection. Yeah, great ideas.
We found it. We found something that AI can't replace. We did it. There it is.
And then again, when we think about, the whole task initiation getting started, well, I see again a lot of graphic organizers being used, which is great. Paper-based ones, not so great, but technology-based ones, in Google Docs. But what if you just get some, bullet point ideas just to get started? And maybe AI has helped you with those bullet point ideas, but you want to, instead of having, static graphic organizers, you want to structure writing using freeform digital graphic organizers. It's a much better way to incorporate this particular strategy by using, just moving those ideas around and helping you organize the flow of the written product when you're thinking about composing text. So you don't want static materials, but you want to be able to structure your writing in a free-form thought process. And so there are a couple of sample tools for consideration. Some Bubblus and Poplet. Bubblus is actually an iPad and iOS app as well, and these are available online. But think about, again, are your tools mistake tolerant? If you've got a paper-based graphic organizer, shoot, and I have an awesome example of that too. I'll have to add it in so that when people click on the QR code at the beginning, they will see this added in, that a static graphic organizer is not mistake tolerant. So think about that who's left out when that's what we use, and who benefits when we use a free form option as well.
For sure. And think of those, right away as this picture has been rotating, and I've been drawn to it visually by that one piece that is different, and that is the color. Thinking about that as a feature of these tools, what is providing extra layers of support for my writer? And like you said, Karen, the beauty of a graphic organizer is an opportunity to get a bunch of stuff out and then look at it as a whole and start to sort and organize and put ideas together. And when you think about that with a digital graphic organizer, one of the things that always comes up is color. I start to sort by color. Karen knows this about me. I love sorting by color. I'm always sorting things by color. That's what works for me. But I think that's really critical to provide that other level of support to our writers as they go forward. Are these two ideas the same or are they different? Starting to pull them together and manipulate them and move them around in that digital space to start forming their writing plan, which is great. Like Karen says, you
Yeah.
can't do that on paper.
Right.
I
No.
guess if you had Post-it notes, Karen, you could do that. Index cards.
And then you have to copy it over.
Yeah.
You
And then you
know,
got to copy it over. Yeah.
yeah.
Not great.
And we know many learners, if they've just, if they're using the paper, aren't they done? Now you're making me copy it over into the technology. Why couldn't I just start there?
Exactly right. Yeah. You have someone who's kind of pushing back against the process anyway because it's hard and they don't like it. And then, oh, well, this is so much fun. Let's do it twice. Yeah, that's not a good answer, right? Not a good
No,
answer.
they're done. I'm done. I did it the first time.
Finished. I did it.
Yeah.
All right, as we keep going and we keep talking about different things, I took a path a little differently with this one, and I pulled one of our cards from our card deck, thinking the same idea, talking about writing. Karen mentioned it before, touched on this idea of using audio, and we taught, and Karen mentioned before the idea of voice typing and things like that. But when we think about this as a strategy to have success for our writers, sometimes it's about using whatever tool I can to get as much out as quickly as possible. And for some of our learners, that's audio and it's recording and it's thinking about how do I get my ideas down. Just like Karen said, I want to do it once and then move to a finished product. I don't want to write it down on a note, stick it in my pocket, then put it somewhere and then do something else with it. But instead, I want to be able to make that jump quickly. And one of my personal favorites to do this is Google Keep. And it's funny, Karen, I think two of the strategies I show right now are going to have Google Keep in it because that's just it's a very powerful tool. I think that it is the unsung hero of the Google suite of products, and not many people seem to use it. And that always makes me sad because I love Google Keep. Before we started, I just showed Karen something in my Google Keep that we were talking about right before we started. So it's a great tool. But one of the powerful features of Google Keep, think about Google Keep if you haven't used it. It works everywhere. You can load it on any device, and it automatically syncs your information across those devices. So I make a note one place, it shows up everywhere else. I have it and it's done. And so one of the powerful features is if you're using it on a smartphone or a tablet, I have a recording button as part of the way I can make a note. And this is something I've used with a lot of learners to get them past this brainstorming phase into a organized final product and doing this kind of on the fly because they can simply open up Google Keep, hit the record button, speak into their device, and leave themselves a note. When that note shows up in their Google Keep, it has both the audio of them talking and that audio has been transcribed into text. Now, suddenly I have the text. I didn't have to do anything else. There it lives. And so we've crossed over one of those big hurdles of, I don't want to write it down. I don't want to write it down twice. I don't want to type it twice. Great. If this is something that works for you, use your voice, record that in, and have those notes ready. One of the great things about Google Keep is the way you can organize things. And so you can add labels to all of your notes in Google Keep. I'm going to turn this into a Google Keep.
I know.
I'm just going to do that, right? But I just tie it together for a second. If you add a label to the bottom of your Google Keep notes, you can sort them when you're done. And so what I find I've used this strategy for a lot of writers as we've gone through. And I'll point this towards like a middle school, high school writer. And what I found was I was working with a lot of individuals who were in different places throughout the day, including on a bus going to a sports game or something like that after school. And then they would get home really late and they don't want to write anyway. And now it's 8 o'clock and they finally eaten dinner and they're going to sit down to do their homework. And, writing something was not high on their list. Well, they could use their phone while they were on the bus and record ideas about their writing assignments. And when they get home, sort them and then start making that into a final product, which I think might be on the very next slide, might be my kind of next step of this process. So
But
Google Keep is a good example for this. Sorry, Karen. And also Read and Write for Google has a voice notes feature where you can leave yourself notes on the side.
And I think the recording audio strategy is so important. Many times we walk into classrooms and we see like that one-to-one paraprofessional sitting next to that elementary age learner, and that learner is allowed to dictate to the adult. Well, what's the problem with that?
Yeah.
How is that in promoting independence for that learner? How are they learning how to spell, how to take risks in, recording their thoughts? And so I love the idea of recording audio instead, using either Google Keep or Voice Notes. One thing to say is Voice Notes doesn't do the transcription, but it still makes it much easier for the learner to see themselves as being able to do this on their own, because that's what we want to promote. Otherwise, we're promoting dependence on adults, and the long-term vision for that is something that we see at middle school and high school, is that learned helplessness, right, Mike?
Right,
That
exactly.
passive learner.
Yeah.
And so we really want to promote, that the learner can do this, that there are strategies and features that will help them to be more successful. And this is a great strategy to incorporate and to think about and reflect on who's being left out with the way I'm currently using materials, and is there a better way?
Use some of those things you probably already have. It's another example of you don't need to necessarily go get something. This is something you probably have. If you're a Google school, it's there already. Oh, look, it's part 2 of the same conversation. It
And
is
you know what, Mike, I added in another one at the end with that'll also show up another feature, because Google Keep is so wonderful for helping us with
It is really
strategy.
funny. Yeah. Yes. Thank you for joining us for our Google Keep webinar. But anyway, I think it's a great example of its range of features. But one of the things, kind of the next step of writing for that learner who's starting with Google Keep and recording their ideas into notes, is that getting those notes out of Google Keep into wherever it is you're writing. In the case on the slide here, I opened up a slide and I wanted to take the text that I just spoke into my phone and put it in the slide. If you've never noticed in your Google Documents, slides and docs, and even your calendar and your email, if you look along the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see your profile picture and then all of those icons underneath it. And Google Keep is there as one of those icons. I'm always amazed at how many people have just never noticed those things over there. It's just kind of an empty space that they're not paying attention
It's
to.
so true, Mike. They've never been tempted to click on any of those icons. They're just there.
Yeah, there must be. I must be that kind of person, Karen, because I click on all of them. I'm like, cool,
Yeah.
what's this going to do? And I just keep opening stuff.
And so stop and click on every one of those. Stop the video and just explore and see what options are there.
Yeah, yeah. Look for your little toolbar there. But one of them is Google Keep. When you click that, all of your Google Keep notes show up in a column right there alongside of that toolbar. Once I find the note that I dictated in to Google Keep, which it then transcribed for me, all I have to do is grab that with my cursor and drag it into another workspace. In this case, it was slides. It could have been docs. And all of that text will drop in there. Now, suddenly, I'm not writing it again. I've written it once. Now I've brought it in somewhere, and then I can move to the next phase. I can move to editing to finalize this work. And so it's not having me do it twice. That gave me a space to start organizing my ideas and using the feature of Google Keep facilitates the next step of my writing process. So it's giving me that opportunity to go forward and finish that up. Sometimes I might say to somebody, pretty it up, make it pretty, make it nice, make it final. But it's a very easy way to do that. And again, this is something that we all have and very few of us use. So I'm on a crusade to get people to use Google Keep. And so there you go. What do you think, Karen? Other thoughts about Google Keep, or should we just wait till the next slide?
Yeah, we can wait. But again, what we're thinking about is these are readily available options that can help support the writing process. And so we hope that we are encouraging you to think in new ways of what's readily available. These are ubiquitous options.
And tying them to the steps of the writing process. Where are these tools, features going to help that writer as they move through their brainstorming, through their drafting and editing? As we think about, so I've moved from idea generation to making a draft to now editing, and thinking about how do I use text to speech as a solution for editing. We've all been there where you've written something and stared at it a bunch of times and it looks perfect until you read it out loud and you say, well, where'd that come from? That's not what I wanted to say. Using the tools we have, is there a way to promote this idea of self-editing as a strategy before they hand this work in, before it moves to that next step, and using, again, Karen just said it, the tools we have. There's plenty of text-to-speech tools we could point you to. There's probably thousands of them. But why? You have them. They live right there. If you're in an iPad or an iPhone on the left, that's the built-in speak selection. That's simply I turned on in the accessibility features. Hold my finger down and it highlights text. And the option says speak. On the right is a Chromebook. Select to speak on a Chromebook. So the same idea. I can have that in my Keep note and I can highlight text and have it read to me. I can wait till it ends up in my Google Doc or my Google Slide, wherever it might be. And same idea, select the text and have it read to me. Using that strategy for editing, for that first pass editing, for that final editing, whatever it might be, as that writer goes forward. This continues that kind of philosophy that Karen mentioned in the previous slide, of actively participating in this solution, not waiting for someone to say, hey, that doesn't make any sense and you need to rewrite that, but instead going forward and being an active participant in that and doing that yourself. And again, I think every one of the webinars, I'm going to find a way to put in a built-in accessibility slide, because I think that's it's such a simple thing we can do. And the uses are so broad. I love this idea. And people will sometimes think, well, text to speech is really just a reading thing. It's not for writing. Right. And that's not, no, it's a thing we can use to support any of these needs that someone might have. And I think that's really important to remember, especially if someone pushes back on that. I've had students push back and say, well, I don't need that because I can read. Okay. But we're not using it for reading now. We're using it for editing our writing work. That's a different task we're using it for. And this could be really helpful.
And again, Mike, this could be another opportunity for reflection, that as part of self-editing, to listen to the text, did you find any errors? And sometimes they will find a number of, I know, I think about my own son when he had me edit his work. I would always say, did you listen to your work first before you shared it with me? The other point I want to make is with Read and Write for Google, which many schools have, there is dual color highlighting. So it highlights the word in one color and the sentence in another color. And that visual cue, if you're seeing a large block of text, which I have shown to many learners because they forget about punctuation. So if you're seeing a large block of text, That's an indication, a visual cue. I think I've missed some punctuation here,
Yeah,
which
that's a
is
great example.
it's a visual cue as well. It's just such an important point, because when we read it on our own, our brains fill in what it thinks should be there. But this is using text to speech as part of the editing process, like you said, Mike, so important. It's not just for reading, it's also as part of the editing process in writing. And I can never express this often enough, to how important it is, and to make it a general accommodation for all of your learners. Just have it be, before you hand it in, before you submit it, did you listen to it?
Yeah, part of your good writer's checklist, right? Like that kind of one of those finalized steps of listening to it. I'll do that sometimes, Karen. I'll hit text to speech and I'll turn away from the computer so I'm not even looking at it and listen
Yeah.
and to hear what something said. And you're right. If I notice it's speaking for a long time and not pausing, I'm like, oh, well, I forgot some punctuation there. So yeah, really good point.
Which again is a perfect segue for our next strategy of creating editing checklists, because that is one of the, I recommend all the time, adding did you listen, or listening as part of the editing checklist before you hand it in. And there's many ways to create editing checklists. I do recommend working with the learner, like let's devise something together. Let's create an editing checklist together. And there's a few different ways to do this. One is, again, using the power of Google Keep. And the advantage of doing it in Google Keep, and Mike, you have sung the praises of Google Keep, but this is again one that really needs to be highlighted. Many times when learners are working to compose text in Google Docs, they may have to go outside of the Google Doc to get to a checklist or to get to something else. This keeps them right within the Google Doc so that the editing checklist is right on the right side once they've opened it and pinned it. And it's right there, and they can go through each component, whatever the two of you have focused in on that particular writing assignment. You can also create writing checklists using AI. What does AI think needs to be included when you're doing the editing and revision process? And then there's a great tool. I used to recommend this all the time, and I was surprised to see it's still available. Mike, can you click on PBL Writing
I
Checklist?
sure can.
This is, and I noticed it had been last updated in 2009, which is kind of crazy, but it's still available. So it takes you to, so you can compose with your learner different types of checklists. So let's go to the 5 through 8 one, Mike, just as an example. And so here you can create the checklist. So you'll see that there are different different categories, and click on any one of those categories, Mike. And then choose something there, maybe fluency or whatever. And then yes. And so now you get a checklist. So you can choose a few different ones from every category. Keep in mind, do you want to overwhelm your learner with too many things that they really need to focus in on? But so if you go to the next category, capitalization, whatever it is, and then you can, again, select a few. You can also, you'll notice you can add to the list. So you can add something to your own. And I always would recommend listening to it as one of them. And if you scroll down to the bottom, Mike, it will say generate printable checklist. Now again, are we all about paper? Yes, you can print it up, or you can click here and now it is in a digital format as well. And you can share this with your learners. So, just another way to meet this particular strategy of creating customized writing checklists. Were you familiar with this, Mike?
Yeah, I had not used this. This is really great.
And again, if you scroll, I can't believe it's still available. So take advantage of it, because it's a great way to sit with your learner. Let's work on these, look at all these different things to think about when we're composing text. What do we really want to focus in on this particular assignment?
Yeah, I like things like this where it's kind of populated already and I can make choices. And I like when you said, Karen, this idea of using AI for this. I think that's a really good use for AI for us is giving us these choices that we might not have thought of in the moment. I always like that idea. And then so generating a list of items that I should be aware of, and then moving through it, talking with the learner and saying, where are the important pieces here? And I appreciate what you said too, Karen, is that I think that for some people, the urge to hit select all every time is going to be high. And I think that that's not always helpful.
No,
Right? We
right.
think it is, but it's not. I mean, I'm just looking at this now in just that one box. The minute I realize I have to scroll, I'm kind of already out on that box.
Yeah, we don't want to overwhelm the
Yeah.
learner. We want this to be a strategy that works and does not overwhelm and provide an obstacle right there. Because think about what are the roadblocks to success, and that could be one. You're making me consider too many factors, and it's overwhelming.
Might be an option to think about as you go forward. I'll go back to Google Keep for a second. Different checklists for different areas of focus.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then they open and close them as they move through, as they need them. Then they know they're there, but they don't have to feel this need to go through 20 different boxes to check off before they move to the next phase.
Absolutely.
That's good. That's great, Karen. I had not seen that. That's cool.
Oh, great. Love to show new
Yes.
ideas. So now we absolutely know that this is how learners feel when we design inclusively, when no one is left out, no one is excluded. There's success, there's independence, there's joy in learning, and there's a sense of accomplishment.
And through simple strategies. These are simple ideas that we
Yeah.
can layer into a learning experience to provide that support in this process. So as we think about our next steps, what are they? We've
Yeah.
said it a bunch of times. Karen and I are big on that idea of reflect. And I love that.
So yeah, think about what your next steps are, because for everyone, you'll take something different. You'll take a different nugget from this particular webinar, but think about what can you stop doing. Again, what does that look like for you? Maybe for some of you, you'll stop using some of those mistake intolerant tools. And what can you start doing instead? So think about that. It'll look different for every one of us, because we all have our own there are some things that we fall back on, right? And then that whole idea of twatty, that's the way we've always done it. But think about, are there some things to unlearn? Are there some things to instead implement that can help promote success and exclude no one and include everyone, as we're teaching to those fringes that we talked about in our original inclusive mindset webinar. And again, think about, what does it look like? How can you promote inclusive learning? And so again, think about who's excluded when you are offering your current instructional methods. Is there a way that you can change things up? Can you offer a variety of formats? Can you offer a variety of writing materials? Can you offer choice? Choice is essential if we really want to ensure that everyone is included. And then, ensure that they know about what's already built in, those readily available supports. And, again, Mike really sang the praises. We both love the features in Google Keep. So those are scaffolded supports that can help support your learners, and ensure that they are aware of the features. Show everyone. And then the learners who need that particular scaffolded support, that they will start to do incorporate it on their own.
I think you're right. Karen, you said one of my favorite chunks of a sentence. You said, show everyone. Show everyone. This isn't just about those few individuals in the room who we know struggle with writing. No, show everyone, because you might capture the attention of someone else. And they say, well, wait a second, that's a great idea. That's going to change the way they do it, whether they were struggling or not. It's going to give them a better way to move forward and be successful.
Because then you're empowering every learner. The idea is show everyone, and then equip them. Don't hide the features.
Right.
Demonstrate to everyone, and then the learners who need it, they will start implementing those options. And also model it too. That's another thing. Model, like, oh yeah, you can model it as an educator, because that's such a powerful option as well.
Definitely. Well, we did it. You moved through writing. We don't know where you've been in this series. We don't know where you have to go, but I hope that you're enjoying it as you go forward, and check out these different areas of focus. Who knows? Maybe you'll see me again talking about Google Keep somewhere else. Fingers crossed, as we go forward. But it's really great stuff to move through them. Hope that you're getting some good information out of this.
And Mike, one point I wanted to make before we're done, we didn't talk about publishing, but I read a quote once that said, I'm poorly paraphrasing it, when you're writing for an audience of one, the teacher, you want it to be good enough. When you're writing it for an audience of many, you want it to be good, as opposed to good enough. You want it to, you want it to impact, you want it to have an influence. So think about that. Where are you encouraging your learners to publish their work? Do you want it to just be good enough, or do you want it to be good to great?
Yeah. And publishing can mean a lot of different things. I mean, I put a final product in a Google Doc and I send it to Karen. I have published it. It's published. I mean, these are publishing tools. Are we looking for different kinds of publishing, or like a book creator, or even a Google Slides or something like that? One of my favorite ways that I've seen people publish their work is to make a Google site and create something and then share that with their classmates. Like Karen said, sharing it for a larger audience propels someone forward to make sure that they're doing a really nice job. So think about those publishing pieces.
So thank you all for joining. It was great. We hope that this has had an impact, that you are rethinking some of your current methods, and that you're reflecting on what you can change. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Karen.
Thanks. See you, Mike.
See you.
Thank you for joining us. Are you a New Jersey educator looking for support or professional development tailored to your district's AT needs? We offer free, customized training and coaching for NJ teachers, paraprofessionals, and families. From hands-on workshops to individual classroom support and small group facilitation, we're here to help. Visit us at atcenter.tcnj.edu to learn more. Have a question? Contact us at atcenter@tcnj.edu. Please like this video, leave a comment, and subscribe for more content on all things assistive technology.